Hey Dennis,
Hello, Ralph.
we usually don't get to see you. We usually get to see a picture of you.
Well, I wanted to mix it up today,
Yeah, I know. I know you. Hey,
let you
Winnie.
know that I truly exist.
um, so I was talking with Scott, who I think is new. I don't think I've seen him before. He was saying he's a little less than 2 years. I guess September, May, June, July, August. 1 year and 8 months out. How are you doing, Scott?
Oh, I'm doing good. I'm still in occupational therapy, but they're gonna discharge me at the end of June, this June. I
You're
it
doing
affects,
pretty well to have stayed into physical and occupational therapy that long.
yeah, I know. I've noticed like through the stroke groups, it seems like most people last in occupational therapy a year if they're lucky. So I feel very fortunate. The stroke affected my left side. I can walk, and my hand is slow to come back.
Well, that's pretty good.
Yeah, the fingers, my pinky is my best finger.
Well, welcome, Scott.
Thank you, Dennis.
That's Dennis. Dennis is one of like me. I guess I call him pay it forward type person. Somebody who's doing okay, who has decided that they're going to spend some level of time or effort on sharing their experience and trying to help other people through this journey. Because Lord knows they throw us into the swimming pool and say swim.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for the manual.
Yeah, well, that's how I got involved in doing this, because I'm a video guy and I wanted to make the definitive manual on stroke on a DVD and hand it to everybody as they left the hospital.
Yeah. Yeah, you do
Uh,
some good things. I like looking at your videos and your posts, and yeah, there's you're one of my favorites, and there's Neil,
yeah,
Mike, and there's Brandon. He's in this.
yeah,
Yeah, so I'm making friends.
good, because actually I recruited Neil and I recruited Brandon and I recruited David Lauderdale.
Oh yeah, David's another one.
They were all in different groups and I saw them doing things that I thought other people should be seeing. And in David's case, he was kind of getting abused a bit in the group. Neil lived 5 hours away from me, so I drove up to see him. Good morning, Lauren.
Lauderdale, right?
Well, he lives in Fort Lauderdale now. He's from Lenore, and he had a stroke in North Carolina, about 5 hours from me. So actually, 2 years ago, January, I drove up there to meet him and interview him. In fact, I just sent Lauren the clips from that interview, and I found Neil to have very much the same kind of philosophies as I did. So, Lauren, when I mentioned to you that I asked him loaded questions, you probably didn't understand that until you watched them and heard his answers, because didn't his answers sound a lot like me talking? Yeah, they do, don't they?
They kind of do. You're right.
Well, see, I end up doing too much talking, and I'm self-conscious about it, just because I think involving other people is a good thing. So
Sure.
when I saw Neil was um, had similar philosophies and could be a voice, the point is, the more Dennis Falveys and Neils and Brandon Waves and people we got who are saying, you can do this because I am, and they show you. One thing they had in common was they were all doing videos, and I'm a video professional by nature, so that's the one thing that I've done to differentiate Stroke Buddies from the other Facebook groups out there. I've tried to give it a video component, both with my videos and with encouraging people. Little did I know that Neil Isaac was going to post at least one video a day, every day for the last 2.5 years. That's like 900 days he's
Wow.
been going. He's posted a video almost every day. If I don't see one for him for a couple of days, I I think he's pissed off at me or something. It's usually something in his life. He's not mad with me. But so Lauren, we were just talking with Scott because he was new. Winnie's here. She
Yeah.
likes to listen to everything we have to say, which is good.
Hey, Scott, if I may, where are you from?
I'm
Where
from
do you live?
Ohio.
So, you know, Scott, when people say they get, they graduate, you know, oh, my OT is going to graduate me next week. They think it's like getting a merit badge or something, you know. It's actually, they're telling you that you've run out of insurance or, you know, I'm not trying to take away anything from what you've done or what anybody's done to get graduated, but it's typically, people get all excited like they did well enough to get graduated, and that's a term that the therapists use to avoid saying you're being cut off.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. It seems like it's, you know, it's the insurance.
Well, let's give a couple of tips to people who are out there listening, because we have to assume that they're like, I didn't know that you used my videos, Scott, for example. So whenever I get discouraged about this, I remember that there are lots and lots of people out there that are just listening and lurking. And so let's give them a couple of tips on how to stay in physical therapy. And the first one would be to establish a really strong relationship with your physical therapist. I've gone over this a number of times, but the basic premise is ask for homework, do the homework, come back in and impress them, and you have a completely different type of relationship than the person that just shows up and says, they don't say this, but their basic attitude is, okay, I'm here, make me better. You're going to have, you know, if you're involved in your own recovery, you're going to have a whole lot different relationships. So that's number one, because once they like you, they don't want to cut you loose. And
Ralph, if I may,
sure.
if I can add, Scott, and I don't know your situation, but a lot of times it's not just your insurance ran out, but you've plateaued.
That's what they're telling me.
And
Yeah,
that does relate to insurance, because the insurance companies don't understand that plateauing is part of the process.
Sure.
They want to see continual improvement week after week. And when you don't demonstrate that because you're at a plateau mode, you know, your therapist is bound to cut you off. But to Ralph's point, it really is how your therapist is writing up her notes that the insurance company is reviewing.
I think that's what happened with me, to be honest with you, because I go to Ohio State University for my rehab, and I've been going there since November of 2019. I had my stroke in September of 2019, and I told myself I'm going to keep going to this until either I get my hand back or they kick me out. And what happened was I had this occupational therapist, and she got pregnant during the COVID, or actually she got pregnant before the COVID, and she was out, and she came back. She had her baby, healthy baby, came back, and then she's like evaluating me, and there's like parts of my arm that she feels that should be working, and she's like, well, you're not doing your exercises right. And I'm like, well, the occupational therapist I got left with, she got pregnant during COVID. So I just think she was like laying back and not putting forth her best effort and evaluating me. And so Lisa, my other occupational therapist, comes back and she's like I said, she's like, you're not progressing like you should be. So, and then after that, like she submitted to my insurance to get more visits. And then before they were giving me 40 more visits, and then all of a sudden they only want to give me 15. And I think it was like related to her notes, related to like what you're saying. And it's like,
Well,
I haven't plateaued. I know I haven't.
that relationship that Ralph's talking about with your therapist is important. I mean, not that they're going to do anything unethical or anything you ask them to, but for example, my last reevaluation, and I was very concerned with getting cut off again, because I've experienced it 3 times in the last 3 years. You know, she had me do the standard, test that she did last time where they time you and so on and so on. But then I had her add a few other things, and I said, make sure you make notes that, though it's not an improvement over test X that we did last time, it's a new and improved. I mean, case in point, she was timing me on how quickly I could get to a certain spot, go around the cone and come back and sit down. Well, I said, okay, I wasn't beating my time, but I said, this time, let's do it without the cane, which is something we didn't do last time. And I was able to do it without the cane. And though the time wasn't, enough to show improvement, I said, make sure you write it up that I didn't use a cane. So that demonstrates some improvement. So, again, that relationship with the therapist is critical because they're governed by, a standard of ethics too. And I respect that. I don't expect her to write exactly what I say, but if you're communicating with her or him, and highlighting some things that you're doing and doing your home exercises the best you can to maintain where you're at. I mean, I found that when I don't go to therapy for as little as a week, I regress very quickly. And this
Well, you
past,
need to keep it up at home.
yeah, I try to do the best I can, with my lack of discipline that I have, but I'm fearful now. I have not been to therapy all week because they had to cut me off because I'm going out of town, and they have to allow 10 days after I come back before they'll let me in the facility. So that's going to be 2 weeks without therapy, and I know damn well that I'm going to regress unless I really work that much harder at home. So, though we all get frustrated that the insurance companies are kind of dictating our treatment plans more so than the doctors or a therapist, and maybe it's just me, but it's a pet peeve of mine. We do have some control over this, and there are things we can do to help better the situation.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
That's all I got.
Okay.
Yeah, one
Go
of the reasons I'm here is I'm getting discharged from my occupational therapy at the end of June. So I'm kind of at the burnout period. And I don't think my occupational therapist understands that. Like me going to see her twice a week is motivating me to do the exercise because I'm in burnout, right? I've been doing this for a year and 7 months. I'm tired of exercising. I don't want to exercise my arm anymore. I don't want to exercise my gluteus maximus. I don't want to exercise my ankle. I'm tired of it.
Yeah, I've ran into the same thing. Couple of quick things. When you're talking about these notes that they write, they have some latitude in that, what they write down. Dennis, you were saying, I'm not sure she wrote down about the cane, but hopefully maybe she did. They have some latitude. So if they feel like, you're really trying to get better, as opposed to somebody showing up who wants them to make them better, they're going to cut you a lot more slack. I know this to be a fact because I've had that type of relationship, and I've had them cut me some slack. Okay, another thing you can do is, I have a friend who's a member of Stroke Buddies. He's kind of inactive, Marcus Rosenlinger, and he had a doctor in Maryland where he had a stroke who would write new physical therapy recommendations like once a month. And he kept things really, really small and narrow and focused. And so Marcus kept achieving his goals because his goals were small. And so they were using the doctor's measuring ruler instead of the insurance company's ruler. So that's one thing. Also, I can tell you that I'm not going to mention any names here because I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but I wanted to work on running, and that's not exactly something that the insurance companies want to do, so, or pay for. The therapist actually gave me the language that my doctor should use in order for it to pass muster, and with the therapy outfit and the insurance company. that was kind of eye-opening. So, you know, she wrote the language. I sent it to my doctor. He put it in the order. Bingo, I'm in, you know, doing something that's questionable. So those are a couple things you can do. Get your doctor to be more involved. That's difficult because they're so busy they don't want to do anything that they don't really have to do. But still, you could. There are ways to do it, but I think the most important thing is to establish that good relationship so that the therapist doesn't want to let you go, and they'll work for you and against the insurance company. Not against the insurance company, but they'll keep you in as long as they can. So. One thing I would say to you, Scott, is, you know, you don't have a choice. You know, I went at mine really intensely, like 10, 12 hours a day for 15 months. And I was so burned out. I can't tell you how burned out I was. You've gone longer than me. I was 15, you've gone 20 months. Or no, because it took you 2 months to get in. 18 anyway. You know, I just started saying, I'm tired of pulling on rubber bands. I'm not going to do this anymore. Luckily, I, you know, had gotten most of my walking and hand function back. But I then spent a year or two without doing much physical therapy at all. But I did involve my left hand. I'm also right side stroke, left side affected. I did involve my left hand in day-to-day activities. I'd started it before I stopped pulling on rubber bands, and I most definitely paid attention to it. So one thing you can do to do more therapy is involve that hand and arm in life more. Okay, it's really slow and really frustrating, like folding the laundry takes twice as long, and you say, this is stupid, it's taking twice as long. But you have to look at it as therapy. Okay, so you'd be sitting in a chair watching, you know, The View, or you could be folding laundry and doing yourself some good. So, you know, everything I do takes me longer, even to this day.
Yeah.
You know, I just painted my house. It took me a couple months. I'm not very fast at climbing up and down ladders. I'm not supposed to be on them at all, you know, ever, period. So I'm real careful, and I'm real careful when I'm leaning out with a paintbrush or something, you know, so, and I get brain tired. I'm sure everybody here has done what I call run out of brain, where you do something really intense and you just go, oh, I have no brain. I can't do this anymore. I particularly get it when I if I put two objects in my hand so I can't grab onto the railing, and then he had me walk up 4 flights of steps. By the time I got to the top, I'd be pretty brain dead, mainly because of fear. Because the whole time, I've never fallen on the steps, but I have a fear of falling on the steps. I particularly have a fear of falling on the steps when both my hands are occupied, and I would have to drop something before I could grab the rail. I'm a big believer in trying to train the fear out of you I walked the steps, and first I would grab the rail. Then I ran my hand over the rail. Then I ran my hand about 2 inches over the rail and never touched it. And I finally put my hand by my side, but I still, to this day, 13 years later, when I go up and down steps, I have the rail on my strong side. Same way when I go out to my office, I walk next to the rail. What do? I don't touch the rail, but I also try and walk up and down the steps. Since I have the rail, I try and walk up and down the steps thinking about it in a very intentional way, kind of like a normal person would, kind of like I used to. And I use the fact that the rail's there to, you know, guarantee that I won't get into any trouble. But if I load up my hands, and it tends to load up my brain. Another one is when I get on a ladder out in the garden and I'm like pounding down the trellis stakes. They're 8 feet tall, so I got to get up on a ladder, and I got a level and a stake in one hand and a 6-pound sledgehammer in the other, and I'm leaning out and pounding with a sledgehammer, boy, I can run out of brain in about a minute. So my advice would be try and integrate that hand into day-to-day life more, and you'll end up doing therapy without really realizing you're doing therapy. The thing I hated was breaking my day. I did it all day, every day. I mean, like all day, every day. I rested for 5 or 10 minutes an hour and then went right back to it. So I got real tired of it. I also got better, pretty much better in 15 months. I don't know if I would have anyway. I tend to think all that intensity helped.
You're 8 years post, aren't you?
I'm 13.
13. Wow.
Yeah.
Hey, Ralph,
Yeah.
for the benefit of Scott and the rest of us that don't know everybody, can we go around one more time?
Sure, because I don't know Green, and oh, that's Trish. So that's over
And
there.
maybe just, just your name, where you live, and how long are you post-stroke?
Okay.
Something real simple.
I just did it. So Scott, why don't you start, and we'll come to Dennis, and I'll just call out the names: Winnie and Trish and Green. We forgot to welcome Green. This is,
Hello, Mr. Green.
or Miss.
Hi, I don't, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, my name is Pat. I don't know. My computer's named Green for some reason.
Okay.
I'm 5 months post-stroke.
What kind of stroke did you have?
I'm not even sure. I'm 73 and it was cerebellum, they said, the back of the head, but my right side is like numb sometimes, and my left side was kind of flaccid, but mainly it's my left eye that I can't see. I can't read very well. It's a strain. And
Okay.
I just went for a walk, but anyway, thank you. Nice meeting you all.
Thank you, Pat.
Pat, a couple things real quick. If you send me a message and to remind me, I'm actually pretty good about remembering and circling back, but to guarantee it happens, send me a message on Messenger and remind me to give you the eye exercises. I worked with somebody who had a cerebral stroke. They tend to affect both sides. They don't hurt. They affect coordination a lot. At 5 months, you're lucky to be able to walk. The gal that I worked with, it took us 4 years to get her to walk. I went over to her house 2-3 times a week and took her to pool therapy another day for 4 years. She crawled for 2 years before we could
Wow.
stand her up. So whenever you think that you've got it bad, take a look around. There's somebody who's
Yeah.
got it worse.
Right.
And so she had trouble with her eyes. These don't fix blind spots, but what they are, there's some eye exercises that I got. Well, they do them in therapy, and I also got them from a retired physical therapist, was doing them with her when I met her, and I started working with her under her direction. And what they do is they stimulate the cranial nerves. There are 4 or 5 cranial nerves, or 9 of them, but 4 or 5 of them are directly tied to your eyes and vision. And so they strengthen those cranial nerve connections. And Kelly was her name. She really felt like they benefited her. The Storm Eye Institute at the Medical University of South Carolina, a very well-known and well-respected eye institute, told her that she'd never get control of her eyes. They jiggled back and forth all the time, and that she would never really be able to see. She had double vision too. Did it get rid of the double vision? Not completely. Did it help? Yeah. Did it stop her eyes from jiggling? Absolutely. Did she feel like these exercises were beneficial? Yeah. I did them with her on arrival, and she had me do them again before I left, every single session for 5 years. So if I went there twice, 2.5 times a week. That was 125, 600 times. I did them twice
Uh-huh.
in the beginning and the end. She felt that strongly about them. So I'll
Well,
send them to you. They can't do any
thank you.
harm. They can
Well,
only,
thank you. Yes, my left eye, I have double vision, I guess, and it just hurts all the time. And then I get this really sharp face pain on the left side of my face. But that's when I was out in the cold and my nose runs and I don't even know it's running on the left side only. But
yeah.
that eye exercise sounds good. I just wrote your name down on my phone, so I'll remember.
Okay, next.
Next on the bottom, we've got, it says Trish is connecting to audio, but Trish is up there. Do you have 2 connections, Trish, or do we have 2 Trishes?
Maybe, well, I'm trying to get on my laptop and it ain't working, so it might,
So is that your map of the United States?
oh, is it on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go back in there then.
No,
and see
no,
if I-
it's okay. It's not bothering me. I just didn't know if there was another person there. Why
Oh,
don't you,
It's bothering me.
okay,
I don't like you being on the phone, but
okay. Well,
See.
why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
well, I'm Trish. I had my stroke 3 years ago. It was a brain bleed is what it was. And well, they told me I'd never walk again.
I see you
Okay.
walking.
Yeah, and I walk 3 miles a day. So
Hopefully you're working on form.
yeah, not a lot, but I do, yeah.
Okay, I had to start over again because I was concerned about distance and not form. So if I'm going to if I'm going to
Okay.
say something to everybody here about some advice, my advice would be, don't worry about how far you go, worry about how strong you are, how good it looks. In other words, if I couldn't see your feet, but I could see a little of this, which means you probably have some
Yeah.
hip weakness. You got what I call hip dip. Is that true?
Yeah.
You feel like you don't walk tall on your hip, like it kind of dips over there?
Yeah, I don't swing my leg right.
Well,
Right.
that whole thing.
I'm lifting it instead of swinging it, I guess is what you say. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I just
That's
missed
good.
it.
Oh, I lift it instead of swing it is what I do.
Well, most people don't lift it well enough. That's part of the problem. The whole thing with hip dip comes from 3 things. Upper leg weakness. You're not lifting the leg high enough to swing it, if you will. The other thing is comes from hip weakness. There's things you can do to build up your hip, like build up your piriformis muscle. You can do hip abduction, helps. If I remember, I'll try and send you a couple of videos because I did one on hip abduction. And the other thing is core. Do you do any kind of core work, like get down and do on the mat? I assume if you're walking, you can get down on the ground and get back up.
No, I can't
You
get
can't.
down.
That's something to work on. Because it's awful handy to be able to get on the ground and get on a mat and do like bridges. Bridges are one thing that
Oh, yeah.
help build up your core, and they're real simple to do. But every time I suggest them to somebody, it seems like they can't get on the ground and back up. I have
Okay,
Well, I
next.
can lay on my bed and do bridges.
what, Dennis?
I said next.
I can lay on, no.
Oh, okay. Next,
Scott?
Winnie.
For Wendy.
I'm
Winnie.
Winnie Osaki. I'm 28 months post-stroke. I can do walking. I go like half a mile a day. I do bridges, but I need, Ralph, a copy of your eye exercises because I can, when I look straight, my eye opens, but when I look down, my eye closes. It's my unaffected eye that's bothering me. That's why I don't really want to read too much now.
Well, they're connected. Your eyes kind of work in unison. So I can't swear that these exercises will help you, but they stimulate all of the cranial nerves having to do with the eye. So they can't do any harm. So if nothing happens, that's all that'll happen. They won't hurt you in any way. So I'll try and remember to send them to you. As you build up your walking, I would also work on form. Form is more important than distance, and it's also
walk
more
pretty much
important than
straight.
speed. We were talking earlier, Scott, was Scott or Dennis that said they were timing him to go around a chair and come back. I'm not so sure about that. That scares me because what you're doing now is you're turning people loose to go as fast as they can. They're going to go as fast as they can because they're afraid they're going to get kicked out of their insurance. Sounds like a potential fall to me. I would measure quality rather than quantity myself, but then again, I'm not a physical or occupational therapist. I just play one on TV occasionally. So, and I started again, I got to where I could walk 3 miles, but I walked like with a big old hip dip. And so I called back to the rehab hospital, and you know what they told me to do? They said, stop walking that far, start over. Just go back. They knew what I was doing. I was walking laps in my driveway, and it took 20 laps in my driveway to equal 1 mile. So I could do 60 laps, or actually by the time I could do 60 laps, I headed out to the end of the street and back twice, which was 3 miles. But they told me to walk on my heels and toes and concentrate on form. So I started walking like power walking. My wife is a race walker, and I learned how to actually do the whole race walking thing with your hips. It's a kind of a girly thing. Women seem to be better at it. Anyhow, I got the whole hip motion and everything down pre-stroke. So what I did was a stroke survivor version of power walking. Did my left hand, behave itself and stay nice and level in the beginning? No, it drooped. But I did the best I could with it, and I concentrated on form. And as I concentrated on form, my walking got better. And as my walking got better, it got easier, and I got faster. So I always tell people, if you work on form, that the speed will follow. People are always hung up on speed, and speed comes from getting back to being closer to your natural gait than it does figuring out how to make the hip dip work at high speed, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Trish is nodding her head, so I guess it does.
yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Scott, tell us about yourself.
I'm from Columbus, Ohio. I had an ischemic stroke back in September of 2019. I was 43 years old at the time. I'm 44 now. I was in the hospital for about a little over a month. I had inpatient care while I was there, and then I started my outpatient therapy in November of 2019. I was in physical therapy all the way until November of 2020 when I was discharged. And currently I'm still in occupational therapy, and I'll be discharged from that at the end of next month. When I was in the hospital, when I was discharged, I could walk out of the hospital with the assistance of a walker. And when I got home, probably, I think it was like about 2 months, I was able to walk independently. I remember when I was in the hospital and I first saw my speech therapist, she pointed at the wall and told me to tell her what time it was. I couldn't do it. I broke down, started crying. I was like, I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make it. I was so scared. It was terrible. But slowly the brain started coming back. I tell everybody I know this story. Like I felt like I had this cloud that was like hovering over my head till about March. I was at the sink scrubbing out a pot, and because it had a lot of like tomato sauce in it and whatnot. But when I got done scrubbing out that pot, that cloud went away, and I was like, I could think so much more clearly. And I was like, I can drive now. I knew I could drive, one-handed, of course, but. And then I went out and, with the assistance of a friend, I drove around the block, and it was good. A little premature. I should have waited a little longer to start driving a little, but my mind was so much more clear, and it was great. And that's how the improvements came, within a year. I woke up and I knew
Nancy, I'm on a call.
my hand was stronger, my leg was
Yep.
stronger. There was just this, the improvements. You just notice the improvements out of the clear air. And so, yeah, and it's like, I'm over a year, and it's just like you got to work so much more harder now, and the improvements, they're much more slow. Like they say, like everything they say is like true. It's like you get most of your gains come within 6 months, and then you get a little more within 12 months, but you get over 12 months and the gains are slower, they're harder to get. And so, yeah, I'm fighting the burnout, like I was saying before. Like I've been exercising, I'm gung-ho. I charged this thing. I didn't sit around and feel sorry for myself and like this crying. Like I learned this through Ralph. Like nobody, I've seen psychologists and everybody, no one, they're like, you're depressed. I'm like, no, I'm not. I just, when someone tells me something sad, it makes me smile. It's like it's involuntary. It's weird. I just fight.
It could be PBA, but it's not necessarily PBA. I wouldn't diagnose myself or run to the drug, because I had the same sort of thing. Actually, 13 years later, I still occasionally, I don't know if I'm just an emotional person, or if this, had some kind of long-term effects. But I do the same thing a couple times a week. I've got something that mostly make me cry, and it's over things that you could cry about, but other people aren't. It was really crazy in the beginning, because I'd laugh at stuff that other people weren't laughing at, and that made me feel weird, because I'm the only one laughing. And then other people would all be laughing, and I'd go, I don't find anything funny about that at all. Why are they all laughing? So it's like the whole inappropriateness. See, here's the thing. Everybody thinks, that there's, why don't we cut ourselves more slack? I guess because we don't know. We don't know that these things are all normal, that brain fog, or, you're walking around, who is it, Linus, who had the cloud above him all the time? You're walking around with a cloud above your head all the time, and you don't know that that's, it's normal for you. Dennis was saying, I still haven't gotten the manual. Well, the manual is kind of complicated, because it's got a lot of like, well, if you did this, if you feel this way, then go this way. If you feel this way, go that way, because all strokes are different. Some people don't have that emotional component. I find that most people have some level of it. I saw Trish nodding her head over here. Winnie and Green, I can't, I don't see a picture of. So did you have it, Dennis? Were you highly emotional?
Oh, absolutely. And a lot of my personality traits that I had before the stroke, including being highly emotional, have just, they're like on steroids since the stroke. I'm OCD. I'm very emotional, and cry on commercials and stuff all the time.
I've noticed that too. It's like your bad traits. They're the traits you had before your stroke that you had, and then when you had your stroke, they're intensified. Like you said, like I had self-diagnosed OCD before my stroke, and now it's worse. Or like sweating. Like I was a big sweater before my stroke, but now I sweat even more. And noises like, you know, somebody like chewing with their mouth open, it drives me crazy. You know, just
Mhm.
chew gum with their mouth open. I can hear it. It just echoes in my brain. It drives me nuts. Like, close your mouth, you cow. I don't say that, but I'm thinking it, you know.
I think it accentuates all the things.
Yeah.
Maybe not all, but a good number are both good and bad. Because
Sure.
on the good side, I was a plotter before my stroke. You know, I'd put my nose to the grindstone and not think about things. Well, I'm even better at that now. I guess because in my recovery, I use that, you know, to keep at it. You know, you were talking, Scott, about, you know, getting burned out. So I have an ability to kind of like just do it and not think about it. And I kind of called on that ability post stroke to keep me going. Because when you don't question things, you tend to do them more. It's when you get into that whole like, why am I doing this? That you end up like disconnecting yourself from your own recovery, which, you know, you don't want to do. That's why I was suggesting to you, you know, try washing the dishes, folding the laundry, vacuuming. I vacuum left-handed. I get tired of it about halfway through and I switch to the right, but I still start out on the left. All those things that you do, like going up to the, like a dresser, where, you know, where you go up and you have to move it this way and over and move it this way and over. All those little wrist twists and everything, those are all real good. You do a lot of things in life that are, well, therapy is mimicking life, you know. Okay, for the fifth time, I once said there's nothing better to prepare you for life than life itself, you know. So part of your therapy, Scott, could be you know, and it's funny because I make a joke out of it because I always suggest things like mowing the lawn, vacuuming, washing dishes, folding the laundry. Spouses love it. um, let's see. So we went all the way around except Lauren. So we'll let Lauren do a real quick. Hi, I'm Lauren.
Yeah, I'll keep it pretty brief. My name's Lauren Steidel, and I am not a stroke survivor, but I work at MedRhythms, and my job is connecting with stroke survivors at different stages in their stroke. And we're a company that uses music to help people regain their walking function after they've had a stroke. So a lot of what I do is around educating people, connecting them with our product team to, you know, help inform the product designers about how they can make products that use music for stroke recovery more user-friendly, and just getting feedback from stroke survivors like yourselves on, you know, the main issues that they're dealing with. So I try, as I've said in the past, I try mostly to be like more of a fly on the wall in these meetings because you know, you guys are contributing so much, and it's just really helpful to be able to, you know, learn from you all. But if you ever have any questions, I'm also always available here, or I have my contact information also on the Stroke Buddies group. So thanks so much for letting me be here. And again, I'm just so thankful to be able to, you know, hear your stories and hear how forthcoming you are with your recovery journey.
Thank you, Lauren.
Yeah, I will say Lauren is is good at her job, and she every time I interact with her, you know, she's right there. So I guess we kind of started this. There was some clamoring in Stroke Buddies to because of the pandemic, there were no like local meetings. So the idea was kicked around to start these Zoom meetings, and Lauren contacted me right around that time. And I'd signed up for Zoom and they had billed me for a second month. I hadn't done anything when Lauren called and I said, perfect. We both want to find out the same thing, how to better serve this community. So let's do these meetings together and we can explore what people need. Because, you know, I still do maintenance stuff. And I'm dealing with a problem with the hip, but you know, I got better. So the reason I'm here is to find out, like Lauren, what people are dealing with other than me, because I only had one stroke and I plan to keep it that way. And so I only have my experience. So when I hear these stories also, it reminds me of, or makes me aware of things I wasn't, you know, really aware of. It also, I hear similarities, like I watched Trish walk and I said, oh, I see a little, I can't see her hips, but I see that shoulder going down. I think I know what's going on here. So I can also, you know, try and offer some, you know, some benefit, like those eye exercises are a good thing. And I'll make sure to get them to both of you. And I said this last week, but I've been real impressed with med rhythms. I didn't get last week's out. When I do, I'm going to post a couple of the videos that I thought were key. They have one with I think it was a fireman got hit by a car and he had a TBI, but my experience, I worked with a friend of mine who had TBI and he presented very much like a cerebral stroke. A little bit on both sides and some coordination issues. Anyhow, 90% at least the same. And in this video, it's one of the early ones. I wouldn't say it has, you know, really high production values, but in a minute and a half, you go from watching this guy when he first comes in to watching him walk a whole lot better at the end of the video, just a minute and a half later. And I watched it a couple of times and I didn't notice until the second time I watched it that the whole thing took place in a week. The second video with him walking better with what Med Rhythms calls carryover. In other words, he was doing it on his own without the music. So his brain had been able to carry it over, happened in a week. I'm here to tell you that any stroke survivor who looked at that, especially one who's sitting in a wheelchair at 9 months out, you know, would go, I'd really like to do that in a week myself, you know? I mean, because it's visual. I'm a videographer by trade, 40 years. So in my videos and the videos that I always like things that are just visually obvious, where you could actually watch it without the narration and you would still get it. And you could watch this video without listening to anybody and you just see the improvement in the walking. I also found out that the CEO is a clinician and he's young. And I asked Lauren, he's in one of the very first video. I said, that looks like Brian playing the guitar. I wonder if he figured this all out. And I asked Lauren and she said, yeah. So I think they're really onto something. And I'm going to see if together we can help more stroke survivors than either of us is helping on our own. Maybe there's some synergy there. That's what I've been working towards. And Lauren's actually set up a meeting between me and Brian, the CEO. I'm going to interview him. That's why I sent her the interview I did with Neil Isaac as an example. I'm hoping that maybe by us partnering, a couple things, even if we help the same amount of people, I think anybody who's trying to help stroke survivors could use the input of stroke survivors. And they're smart enough to have, you know, tasked Laura with that. And so I think that's smart. But if, you know, I can bring more of a stroke survivor's perspective to it, you know, in terms of developing videos together or whatever, then I think that'll be a good thing. I've got this kind of thing in the back of my head that there's a lot that is going on with us stroke survivors that isn't being listened to by anybody. I think that we're coming up with things and we have issues, and you know, nobody's really paying attention to us. So I'm trying to get some other people to pay attention to us. You know, it's the next step for what I'm trying to do. I mean, I stay busy. Well, my brother-in-law used this one recently. I stay busy as a one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest. But and I, you know, I can stay busy, but there's a part of me that wants to do more. Dennis probably gets it. Trish kind of gets it because she was very encouraging in this developing of this whole meeting here. She was talking about actually maybe doing a meeting of her own because she felt the need. I would, and Scott, you're a good candidate for this. What I call a pay it forward person. You know, what I'm trying to do is, well, I said this about 6 times, so I'll say it for the 7th time. I'm trying to be the guy or gal that I wish I can only be a guy. I'm trying to be the guy that I wish I could have talked to after my stroke, because they sent me, I walked out of the hospital too, Scott. They made my physical therapist go with me. They were trying to discourage me from doing it. And I said, oh, perfect, because Kathy's the reason I'm going to do it. She helped me so much. I said, I'm going to be able to do it. Great. I want Kathy at my side. And they all rolled their eyes. Anyway, I walked out of the hospital. I got in the car and we started driving home. And I realized I left all my resources back there. I had nothing. I realized it in the car on the way home. What am I going to do now? Who am I going to ask? I can only call back there every couple of days. Before you become a nuisance or they won't take your call.
Right.
So, you know, 800,000 of us a year have a stroke and we get sent out to reinvent the wheel. Isn't that crazy? So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to help other people have to reinvent the wheel for themselves less than they would if they didn't bump into me or stroke buddies or some of the resources that I've been trying to put together. And, you know, I get discouraged sometimes because I don't really know. I don't need a lot. I don't need people to be patting me on the back or anything, but sometimes I get disconnected from what I'm doing. I don't feel, I question it. And then I bump into you, Scott, and you say you've been using my videos. I didn't know that. That's a reason to keep going. How many more Scotts are out there? There's a bunch more out there, I bet, because I get a lot of hits on some of my YouTube videos.
Mhm.
I can't figure out why. The one on balancing on your affected leg has 3,000 hits. A couple of others have like 75. What made that one, you know? I'm always trying to figure this out, how Facebook algorithms work and how YouTube works, because then if I understand how they work, then I can maybe use them to my advantage to get more views or whatever. I just recently found out that if it's not your channel, I kept going, how do you subscribe? How do you subscribe? Well, looking at my channel, I can't subscribe to my channel. So there's no subscribe button. It's underneath every video on somebody else's channel. I just learned that, you know, geez, I've had my YouTube channel 15 years. Now I only started putting stroke stuff on it about 4 years ago. But, you know, I just learned that. And the more you learn, then the more you can, you know, one of the ways to get more views and help more people is to have more subscribers. So I didn't know recently how to tell somebody how to subscribe. I'd say, please subscribe, and nobody would subscribe. Now I tell them how to subscribe. So anyway, I wrote down a couple of things because I'm always worried about stuff to talk about. And here we've had no trouble talking.
No, you haven't.
No, we almost never do, but it seems like, you know, always feel like it should be more organized. I feel like I'm starting to try and get my life more under control. I have less demands outside the stroke world, which means I can spend more time on it. I think I should do a better job promoting it because it seems like we've got the same gang here. I don't think that my leaving the thing on top all the time seems like it would work, but people don't notice that it's changed for a new week. Maybe I need 3 or 4 graphics, so I changed the graphic when I changed the date. I also tried to make the meeting code and the password the same every week. So if you write it down once and you know how to,
Oh, okay.
you know how to join a meeting instead of click the hyperlink, you know, you don't need to know. You can just show up on Tuesdays. Anyway,
Right.
while Lauren was gone, I said really good things about med rhythms. I have 5 people who could vouch for me, Lauren. One thing I was going to talk about was making sure that you stay hydrated, because I read somewhere that over 60% of everybody who has a stroke is dehydrated at the time of their stroke. And I thought, maybe we're on to something here. So I looked up how many people are dehydrated, and it came back 75% of Americans are typically dehydrated. Now, I don't think that less people are dehydrated or have a stroke. I think there's a disparity in the numbers, but I'm not sure there's anything there in terms of hydration causing a stroke. I'll circle back and tell you something I noticed in one of the groups. But while I was on hydration, I got invited to talk about spasticity with Michelle Jensen. Well, I told her I'm not an expert on spasticity. I know what happened to me, and I know I confuse it with tone, and I know people confuse spasticity with drop foot. And so I watched some videos and was trying to learn some more about spasticity, so I didn't appear to be an idiot on her show. And I learned that, Dr. Tara Tobias, Orlando Neuro, has one about spasticity and drop foot, and she says 90% of people don't have drop foot. They have spasticity, and people confuse the two. And one of the things, I'm going to tie this back to hydration. One of the things that causes spasticity is not improper hydration. In other words, if you're not hydrated properly, it affects your muscles and can cause more spasticity. So a really simple tip for anybody who's fighting spasticity is make sure you drink. And don't use the old 8 ounce glasses. That's 64 ounces. According to modern measuring, it should be a ½ an ounce for every pound of body weight. So if you drink 64 ounces, you need to weigh 128 pounds. I don't weigh 128 pounds. I weigh 168 pounds. So I need at least 20 more ounces of water. So if you're fighting spasticity, make sure you're hydrated. Also, if you're fighting, one of the things I learned in this little journey, and that's why I love studying anything, in this case, stroke, is there was a guy who used in the 60s, he used to have a column, and it was actually called, it was published in a newspaper, Things I Learned While Looking Up Other Things. You can look it up. It was actually a column in the newspaper. So while I was looking up spasticity, I learned that a lot of times people think that they can't move a muscle, that it's tight. And a lot of times it's not so much that that muscle is tight, it's that other muscles are tight that are keeping you from opening it. Maybe the best one is opening your hand, okay? The muscles that close your hand are 9 times stronger than the muscles that open your hand. So, and guess what? The muscles that open and close your hand, they're not down on your hand, they're up here. They're right here, you can watch them. You see when I'm open, you can't see me opening and closing my hand, but I'm opening and closing my hand. What's moving? Here. You can put your hand here and feel it. So if these muscles are firing, they're going to keep your hand shut. Okay, and you aren't going to be able to open that hand unless you get these muscles to relax. Same with dorsiflexion. Again, I learned this through another video of Dr. Tobias's, and she was talking about how people can't dorsiflect. That's lifting your toe. And if you can't dorsiflect very well, you can't land on your heel, you can't roll through your toe and push off your toe like you're supposed to, because in that whole process, your ankle bends a good bit. And that's dorsiflexion. Well, there are a muscle group on the back of your calves, the top of your calves, three muscles. It begins with a I. They're group. Anyway, I'm terrible with words, so I can't remember. But there are basically three muscles in the back of your calf that are keeping you from dorsiflecting. It doesn't have to do with the muscle that you're moving to dorsiflect. So until you get rid of the tightness in that calf, you're not going to be able to lift your toe. So I would say if you're dealing with spasticity, start asking your physical therapist or studying it online, because it may not be the muscle that you think it is. It might be, in a lot of cases, there are other muscles or muscle groups that are fighting you from working the muscle that you intend to work. So I got all that out of looking up hydration and trying to know more about spasticity. Let's see. Well, that'll do it from that list. There are a couple of other things on there, like suggestions. Maybe it was.
Well, Ralph, I'll go ahead and introduce myself. This is Dennis.
Yeah, you never did. You the one who called for it and we skipped you.
Well, you got going, my friend.
Not bad.
So, my name's Dennis, and I live in northern New Jersey, about 10 miles from New York City. And I had a ischemic right hemisphere stroke caused by a partially blocked carotid artery in October of 2017. So I'm about 3.5 years post-stroke. And you know, right hemisphere, so therefore I'm left side affected. You know, I too was very anxious to learn to walk quickly. The lead neurologist at the hospital I was in, and here in the New York area, I was blessed. I spent my first almost 4 months in a hospital that's worldwide recognized. All it does is TBIs and spinal cord injuries. And they taught me to walk. And that neurologist told my family and I that I would likely never walk again. And 2 weeks later, I walked into his office and said, bullshit. And another 2 months later, I walked out of that hospital. You know, and so I walked with a cane and my AFO, but I walk unassisted. And I don't walk outside or on a track or anything, so I can't tell you how far I walk. And I am working on form, and the toe heel thing is something that I work on quite a bit in therapy. Now, I've been very blessed. You talk about burnout. I've been an outpatient PT for over 3 years. And I don't, you know, it's been a blessing for me. I mean, I worked very hard at getting better, because for me, I have two problems. One is the physical side. My Achilles heel is really my affected arm and hand. I have no use of my arm and hand at all. So I try to work on that as much as I can. And I have used Ralph's YouTube videos and find them very helpful. And I refer a lot of people to them on the sites, Ralph. I know you know that. I
do. I appreciate it for them. It's not about me, but I'm glad, you know, I make them so they can be disseminated to as many people as possible. So thank you.
So I have a way to go, but I'm working hard. So I deal with the physical anguish that we all deal with, but my other demon is my mental anguish. You know, I am full of fear and anxiety. And I work on that quite a bit, but you know, it's not as simple as turning a switch and making it go away. But
No, it's
you
like
know,
depression. You just get over it, man.
yeah, just get over it. That's what
Yeah.
I hear.
Sure.
Be happy.
Yeah.
I hear that all the time. Sure, I'd love to be happy.
No,
But-
of course, I'm being facetious. That's the last thing you ever tell somebody who's depressed is, well, just get over it or be happy. I mean,
Yeah, I know. I struggle with it, but you know, we're doing a lot of work. I spend a lot of time on these stroke survivor sites, and I talk to a lot of people. You know, I have a background in 12-step programs, so it kind of comes natural for me to help the next guy or gal. And you know, I enjoy it. You know, I have a lot of free time because I've been out on disability for over 3 years, and so you know, I try to do what I can do. You know, it helps me too to help the next person. So, you know, we do what we can do. I appreciate this group, Ralph, and I like what you're doing. And if there's any way I can help, let me know. I'm not a photographer. I'm not a videographer. I'm technically challenged as the next, you know, baby boomer.
we'll come up with something for you.
Now, I will tell you this. That doctor that said I'm likely never walk again. I'm very fearful, but also excited that next week I'm going to walk my only daughter down the aisle at her wedding. And that's been part of my motivation to get up and walk better for the longest time. So I leave tomorrow for New Hampshire for her wedding. And I'm very fearful of it, but I know I'm going to do okay because I've been working hard at it. And it's not about me, it's about her day.
Well, remember, people can walk a lot better even if they just put a finger on somebody's shoulder because it gets rid of the whole fear thing. So you're going to have her arm. She's not going to, you know, you'll be fine. The other thing
I
is
know I will.
tell yourself you'll be fine.
I
There's
know I will.
various kinds of brain patterning. And one of the, you know, I just made a joke about, well, okay, Dennis, just get over it, be happy, you know. But on the flip side of that is I very much believe that by being positive, trying to maintain a good attitude, that those things are self-fulfilling prophecies. The more you can have a good attitude, the more likely you are to be able to maintain it and do it.
No, I agree completely. You know,
So
I look at it this way, Ralph.
just
every
tell yourself
morning-
you'll be fine.
Every morning when I wake up and I say, okay, I have to get out of bed and do this again. I'll be honest with you, most days I don't want to, but then I tell myself, okay, I have a choice. Today I can be happy and productive, or I can be miserable. What am I going to do? It's a choice that we have to make every day. And more days than not, I choose to be happy and productive, even though there are times I don't want to, because it's been a long run. It's been 3.5 years, and I'm a very impatient guy. And this is slow and grueling, as most of us know.
Yeah, well, you're preaching to the choir here. I think everybody here would, you know, totally agree with you.
Right,
You know,
but you got
we're
to
all
keep that.
impatient when it comes to stroke, even if we aren't impatient with other things. I mean, what's not to be impatient about, you know, getting slapped to the ground, you know?
Right. So I am so blessed in a lot of ways, you know. And next week will be the biggest blessing next Friday when I walk her down the aisle.
Make sure
But
somebody gets pictures and that you post it because other people need to hear that. I used to not do this stuff because I thought it was bragging. And a guy named Art Jensen, who has a very good site, by the way, I just recently discovered he's been commenting. You know, I've always liked his comments for a couple of years. Well, I went to an article he posted and I realized he wrote it. And then I went to the homepage and I realized, yeah, the whole site. Anyway, he made me aware of the fact that other people need inspiration and that it's not bragging if you show something that you can do because I guess even if people don't will never get there themselves. It gives them some level of hope to get better.
No,
And
absolutely. And that's why we're doing all we're doing
right, that's why I
to
call
help the
it
next person.
Pay It Forward group. I've been
Yeah.
surprised how many people are interested in what I call paying it forward as stroke survivors. Trish, Scott's a good candidate. You and me, we're teaching Winnie all the things she'll need to know to eventually do it herself. And
And Pat could probably teach us a thing or two.
well, Pat, Pat's in training, so.
I don't know about that.
Well, here's the thing: you can't help anybody unless you help yourself. And so, you're close. I think you said 4 or 5 months. You're close enough to your stroke that you ought to be working on getting better yourself and not worry about helping other people. But
Yeah.
you'll learn.
I'd like to help others if I had any way to help them.
Well, you can't help anybody unless you help yourself first.
Well, that's true.
Unless you have a strong base. I didn't help anybody
Uh-huh.
for a long time. I talked about it, and I suppose I help people by talking, but I fell into the whole physical therapy thing that I did. I got asked to fill in for a friend of mine who wasn't a physical therapist, who was working with Kelly, the gal I worked with for 5 years. She was going to visit her new grandkids and said, I didn't even know she was doing physical therapy with her at home. She said, can you fill in for me for a few weeks? And I said, sure, but I don't know what I'm doing. And so she had a neighbor who's a retired physical therapist who had taught her. And so he taught me. And next thing I know, I thought, this is pretty cool. I could actually learn a bunch about this and physically help people by teaching them to stand up. And
now look at you. You're like a PhD.
Now I am? I don't know. I make sure I tell people I'm not a physical or occupational therapist, because you got the whole, you shouldn't be giving medical advice thing. I've also worked with 12 local stroke survivors, Kelly, for 5 years. I've never had anybody sign a release. I'm not, if I drop them, they could sue me. I don't think anybody's going to sue me because they all know I'm trying to help them. So I haven't worried about liability in some ways, but I do on the Facebook groups. I'll go around and there's posts, you've probably seen it, Dennis, because you do it too. The medical doctor thing, it's a pet peeve of yours. Don't give medical advice. We're not doctors. I've seen you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I'll do that, and I'm real careful with the advice that I give. Like I'll say, if you have a physical therapist, then run these 3 exercises by them and see what they think. I know they're going to say they're okay. I know it, but I still do it because you never know if somebody's got something weird you don't know about. I mean, I've talked to people for a couple of months and then found out something that I wish I'd known from the beginning. And the other thing is, when you do this virtually, unless they send you a video, like I'm guessing half the time, I can't see. I tried an experiment recently, Dennis. Somebody asked if I would do a private Zoom thing. I said, sure, I can't believe nobody's asked me. Well, so we were dealing with flaccid wrists, and so I could hold up, my hand and talk to him about it. I got him to show me a little bit, unless you can see somebody, and I really like to touch people. I mean, not that I like to touch them, but if I got a flaccid wrist, I want to see how flaccid it is. If I lift it up, do you hold it there, or does it just fall right back down? Because that'll tell you something. If it falls right back down, you have serious flaccidity. I've said flaccidity and spasticity in the same sentence, and I realized, boy, trying to say those 2 words back to back 5 times fast. So, sometimes if you have flaccidity and you move it up, somebody can hold it up. So I was telling this guy, move it through the range of motion with the other hand and think about it while you're doing it, and do it on the way down. Because people underestimate the way down. Like when you do a curl, everybody slams the curl up and then they kind of let it fall. Well, if you really want to do a good curl or a good anything, you also have a controlled down. If you're doing heel
Right.
raises, once you raise up, everybody raises up on their heels, and then they drop back down. If you really want to get the most out of them, what you do is you drop back down slowly and under control. Because if you do a curl after a stroke, I'm here to tell you there's a spot, this is my affected arm, there's a spot right here, where it suddenly wants to fall. If you give into it, it'll fall there. I took a light weight and I actually worked right here, back and forth, in and out, just a little bit each side of that spot, till I built it up to where I didn't get rid of, to where I got rid of that spot. I haven't gotten rid of that shake that you see. There we go, I stopped it.